We may proceed with the council meeting, Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order for Monday, June the 7th. Before we start the meeting, I would just like to make a comment. The discovery of the 215 children buried in unmarked graves at the Kamloops Indian Residential School is tragic. It is a horrible, shameful part of Canadian history. With respect, we mourn their loss and stolen futures. We cannot relieve the pain, but together we can show our support and commit to educating ourselves. We can listen, we can read a book by an Indigenous author, watch a documentary, do research, and keep listening. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Teixeira, let's start with the roll call.
All right, Mayor Patterson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Here.
Councillor Dickard.
Present.
Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Present.
Councillor Fleet.
Present.
Councillor Hockey.
Present.
And Councillor Cable.
Present.
Thank you. Good evening, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? And of course, if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. Item 3 on the agenda is additions or deletions, and we do not have any this evening, so we'll move right into the health and safety message, which is brought to us by Councillor Dickard, and it's about water safety.
Thank you, Your Worship. Water safety and active supervision. The absence of adult supervision is a factor for most child drownings. Whether it's a pool, the bathtub, a water park, or the beach, always watch children actively around water, even if they can swim. Consider requiring all non-swimmers to wear a life jacket to keep them at the surface to assist you in supervising. When it comes to backyard pools, they are especially dangerous for small children. Ensure adequate barriers are in place, such as 4-sided fencing, along with self-closing, self-latching gate. Empty portable toddler pools after each use. When it comes to diving headfirst into water, it should be avoided unless the individual is properly trained and is sure that the water is deep enough. Avoid diving in home pools and always enter the water feet first. When you're out in the open water, never underestimate the power of current. Swimmers or waders can be swept away in an instant, particularly if non-swimmers or weak swimmers get caught by the current in rivers or out in their depth in abrupt drop-offs. Be cautious about swimming in currents and know what to do if you get caught in a current. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickard. Okay, item 5 is staff reports. The first one, 5.1, is report CAO 08-21. The subject is the 14th Avenue sidewalk cost estimate. It's from Mr. Teixeira, our CAO clerk. Brian?
Thank you, Worship. At the May 17th council meeting, Councillor Dickard introduced and Councillor approved 2 notices of motion with the following directives. The first one was that staff seek a cost estimate for the construction of a sidewalk on the west side of 14th Ave. Which would be completed during just reconstruction of the 14th Avenue, and that this estimate be brought back to council for further consideration. And the second motion was that staff develop a sidewalk installation policy that would give direction as to where sidewalks would be installed on new roads and reconstruction projects, and prevent these findings for council consideration by the end of September. So further to the first notice of motion, Cedar Well Excavation, the contractor who has been contracted to complete the 14th Avenue, 13th Avenue A, 2nd Street A, and 3rd Street road reconstruction has provided pricing based on quantities that were provided by Cobite Engineering. With respect to the second notice of motion, we're currently investigating other municipal sidewalk installation policies, and we'll bring back a draft by the end of September as directed. And that policy is going to include criteria to help guide decisions on sidewalk installations. So the cost to construct a sidewalk on the 14th west side of 14th Avenue, as provided by Cedar Well Excavations, it's a little over $35,000 plus HST. And the design is based on a 1.5 wide sidewalk with a 0.9 meter wide grass boulevard, which is the same cross section previously utilized for the sidewalk on 2nd Street A. So with respect to the strategic plan, this checks off community to support initiatives that contribute to healthier residents, more active and rewarding lifestyles, and a safer community. So the recommendation is that CAO 0821 14th Avenue sidewalk cost estimate be received for information.
Thank you, Brian. Comments? Councillor Hocking, then Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noted that there is some opposition to this installation as contained in our package. But even prior to reading that, I was wondering if we've got them out of sync, whether we should be getting our installation policy in place first and then applying it to this specific location. It would seem folly to me that we go ahead and spend $35,000 on a sidewalk that doesn't meet our installation policy that we're passing in September. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but I think we should have the policy in place and then implement the construction of the sidewalk after talking to the neighbors in that area who seem to be in opposition to it. So I guess I'm not opposed to the money if it's needed, but I think we should get our policy first and then make application to that particular policy.
Thank you, Councillor Hocking. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with Councillor Hocking. You know, it would have been nice if this policy was in place. We would have given prior notification to the residents by doing that. I do not want to miss an opportunity though at the same time, because many times municipal councils are criticized for, you know, they do a project and then a year later they're back in, you know, adding something to it. So that also has a bit of a weight on this proposal. But you know, in listening to the comments that we've heard, I was also going to ask, you know, staff if there was an opportunity, or if perhaps this doesn't work, is a sidewalk that doesn't have the 0.9 meter boulevard, which would go a long way in addressing some of the concerns that the residents along there have. And I don't know if they're not workable, if they add a challenge for snow removal and things like that. So it's more of a question, I guess, from Mr. Cooper. Maybe he could enlighten me on the change to I call it curb face sidewalk, call it a rollback curb, whatever. But I was wondering if that is a possibility.
So Councillor Dickert, you're saying sidewalk and road, nothing in between?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Cooper, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Worship. Our preference is, you know, where we can to have a boulevard. It provides a place for snow to be placed from the road before we get the sidewalk. It also, if you have the sidewalk right close to the road, it's not quite as safe as having the boulevard in there. I think in this case, it's a 0.9 meter boulevard. It's not really going to impact the area. It's kind of the same circumstances with or without the 0.9 millimeter boulevard. And that is preferred in terms of maintenance and providing greater safety for use of the sidewalk for, you know, in the future.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thanks. I just note that we do have, excuse me, areas of that style of sidewalk in the Whaling subdivision. So I did not know whether it was a difficulty for maintenance. I can see the safety side of it when the pedestrians are that much closer to the road. But if I could, I had one other point there, and as well, actually another question, and follows on Councillor Hocking's comment. Is there a chance we would have our policy put together prior to this construction taking place? And I don't know who can answer that.
Ron? When does construction start?
The contractor hasn't got a specific date, but there is indications that construction would be happening in August.
Okay. Councillor Dicker, anything further?
Just, so is it a possibility that we would have a chance to see what that policy would look like prior to that time?
Brian?
Well, Mr. Cooper's going to be doing the bulk of the work on here, and you know what? We're heading into summer. We've only got one meeting in July, one meeting in August. I'm not going to make any commitments to, you know, we said at the end of September, that's certainly what we're shooting for at this point. So, you know, it depends on what pops up over the summer. I mean, like, I don't know. Ron, what do you think?
I would say it's going to be difficult. There seems to be an extreme list of things which I need to get to beyond this addition that's came along.
I mean, Worship, you know, if there's any chance that this sidewalk is going to be installed, we'll push this up. But in order to just push it so that there's a policy, I don't know. You know.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Cable, then Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'm really happy that council supported the motion to create a sidewalk installation policies. I really think that will help to avoid some of these situations in the future. I met with or heard from a couple of residents on 14th Ave last week around concerns with the proposed sidewalk. And well, I think there's a lot of concerns that we could likely work through, perhaps with the exception that constructing a sidewalk would shorten their available parking room in already established driveways. I think that the primary concern was the lack of notice on the addition to the reconstruction project. And many of the neighbors' concerns are documented, as Councillor Hawking had said in item 6.5. And so while I completely support our efforts to increase pedestrian safety and to make Hanover a walkable community, I don't think I'm comfortable at this time supporting the installation of a sidewalk on 14th Ave, just due to the short notice of the proposal and the perhaps lack of discussion with residents at this point. So I hope that in the future, with the sidewalk policy in place, we'll be able to provide notice early to residents and include that with the original tender documents as well.
Thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I feel sidewalk installation policies, it has to be in place. I met with a couple of the residents over there, and I can see their concerns. I don't think it's fair to the residents to find out about potential change to the construction of that road, reading it in the paper. I just don't like the, you know, I think we need to reach out to our residents better than having them read it in the paper that there's a potential sidewalk. I support sidewalks, and I support this installation policy, and I do a lot of walking myself, and I think sidewalks are very important, but I just don't like the way this unfolded. So I think we need to have the policy in place before I can say yes to the sidewalk.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. My previously stated view about not feeling that the sidewalk installation policy is necessary, notwithstanding. In talking to these residents and reading their letter, looking at the property, I also feel it's very unfair to put this on them at the last moment. But I also think they have very valid concerns, actually, in their letter and looking at the property. So I'm not in favor of going forward with this either.
Thank you. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have an opportunity to speak with at least one of the residents who I think phoned everyone on council. And I did have a chance to go by the property, took some pictures and looked at things. And in fact, my in-laws used to live in one of the houses along that strip there. I got to tell you, I feel for residents who say, look, we didn't have enough time. That's a valid point if they didn't have enough notice. But bottom line, I don't think any amount of notice would necessarily change the opinion of at least the resident that I spoke with, who's voiced very strongly and aptly that it's going to shorten his driveway. He's now able to park 4 vehicles. In his view, if we put in a sidewalk along that side of the road, it will cut it down so he could only park 2 vehicles outside. You know, it's kind of strange to me too. People don't seem to use their garages for cars anymore. They seem to be measuring what can I put in the driveway. That said, I know I voiced this the last time this issue came up, that I'm very much in favor of sidewalks. I think it goes to safety. I remember our street lobbying council and saying, geez, you know, we want a sidewalk. We have kids and we're concerned about their safety. You know, my kids learned to ride their bicycle on the sidewalk, and I dare say I wouldn't have felt comfortable having them learn to ride there. I would have probably had to go to some other place, maybe a park or someplace, to get them to learn how to ride their bicycles in a safe place. And the other point and we'll have this full discussion when the policy comes, but you know, we're talking about a 75-year proposition. Like, we should be thinking about sidewalks with 75 years in mind. And I get it, maybe your community right now is mostly seniors, and you know, you would rather have a bigger lawn and a bigger driveway, and you're not as concerned about having a sidewalk. But 25 years from now, that may be significantly different, and maybe people at that time may have, you know, growing families, small kids, and are very concerned about having that sidewalk. So we ought to be thinking about 75 years when we make, you know, when we get into making a decision about our sidewalk policy. Looking at this particular project, I took pictures. I went to the far south side and took a picture and tried to, because there is a sidewalk existing on 14th Avenue that runs north-south. And I think the proposal is that you would be continuing that sidewalk further north along 14th Avenue where the project is going to be. But then I think the people who wrote the letter make the argument that, well, you've got another sidewalk on 2nd Avenue A running east and west on the north side of 2A, and maybe you want to just continue that sidewalk around the corner, which would be on the other side of the road, and you know, that would be just fine, because then it wouldn't affect my driveway. You know, so I can see what's being pointed out there. I have to tell you, when I looked at the sight line, and I'm no expert, by the way, on roads or sidewalks or anything like that, but it struck me, you know, yes, there would be some imposition, some driveways would be made shorter, but I don't see the issues with respect to the trees. And I took pictures just to make sure. You know, I think I don't like it being on my side of the road. And if I can get it put to the other side, I'm a big supporter of sidewalks, as long as it's not on my side of the road, because it is going to affect my driveway. So that said, I don't think that any amount of notice would necessarily change, at least the resident that I spoke to will change his mind, because in his view, as long as his driveway is going to become any shorter, he won't be able to park 4 cars anymore. And so he will be against the project. I wonder if it is at all possible to delay this project, you know, because if we're making a decision about sidewalk and we've got residents who have issues that they want to have flushed out, maybe we can find solutions to some things if we delay the project. You know, could the project be done in October? You know, and if not completely finished, maybe we'll have to come back and finish it the next spring. I don't know. Is that even possible? Because that might solve our problem, that we delay this project, allow time for that sidewalk policy to come into place, allow some time for us to flush out the issues that have been brought to our attention. And ultimately, I think we'll be making a decision. Not everybody's going to be happy with our decision, no matter what decision we make, but at least they will have had an opportunity to properly vent the issues that they've raised with us, and feel like at least they've been heard.
So Deputy Mayor, you're asking that we delay the entire reconstruction project?
Yes, delay it until, you know, October, until the policy is in place. You know, is that even possible? I mean, are we now, you know, are we contracted to do this at a particular time, and is our are all the gears in motion and it, we can't stop it? That would be one thing, but if it could be delayed, maybe that's something to consider.
Mr. Cooper?
I would say the way the project was tendered, it was scheduled for construction for this year and it had a finished timeline on it, which I believe was around the 1st of October to have it start. Later on, we're going to run into difficulty, concrete work, paving work for later on this fall. Plus it was tendered out, circumstances to be done at certain prices that exist to change the context of the project significantly is not really fair to the contractor.
I hear you. That said, if I might, Your Worship, look, if we're forced to make a decision right now, I'm in favor of putting in the sidewalk. And I would hate to do that without properly considering what we could do for these folks. So I would not be waiting for the sidewalk policy because I'm in favor of sidewalks. But it would be my preference if we could to delay it. If we can't delay it, and I'm being asked to vote, I'm voting in favor of a sidewalk.
Thank you. Any further comments? So the report before us is to be received for information. So if we vote in favor of that, we're just receiving it. And then I guess, Deputy Mayor, if you want to put a motion on the floor, you're more than welcome to do that. Is that correct, Brian? Okay, so I will call the question. All in favor of receiving this report, CAO 0821, for information. And that actually means no sidewalk.
Right.
So
I'm in favor of receiving the report. And Your Worship, if this is the appropriate time, I will bring a motion. And I think it's okay to bring a motion since the subject is before us. I don't want the motion to be with respect to proceeding with a sidewalk. My motion is with respect to delaying the project until mid-September. I hear that there may be some issue with respect to the contractor, but I'm not suggesting that we not do it this year. I'm just saying that can we delay the project until mid-September? That would be my motion. It might be defeated, but that would be my preference rather than forcing a sidewalk without a policy. So my motion, I suppose, and I'm hoping that somebody will second at least having a discussion on this, a motion. Sorry?
I would like to say that it was carried, that we received that report for information. You're
Right.
good to go.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my motion is that we delay commencement of the construction of this project until mid-September, after we have had an opportunity to at least review a draft of our sidewalk, proposed sidewalk policy.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Dickert. So then I'll ask all in favor. 1, 2. Those opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. That motion is defeated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 5.2 is report CAO 0921. The subject is appointments to Board of Management for the Hanover Downtown Improvement Area. It's from our CAO clerk, Mr. Tasheri, and I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Fitzsimmons. Brian?
Thank you, Worship. So section 16(1) of our procedure bylaw states that all council appointments to various boards, commissions, special bodies, and other statutory positions shall be made at the required time by resolution of council. So the terms of reference for the Board of Management of the Hanover Downtown Improvement Area allows for 7 members, including 1 member of council. And with the resignation of Ms. Courtney Hopkins of Temptation, the DIA is currently short 2 positions. As the attached letter indicates, the board's requesting endorsement of Krista Savage, owner of Sweet Pea Kids Clothing, and Jen Oliveira, Town Crier, as well as Fabulous Fashions Consignment Boutique, to fill the vacant positions for the remainder of the 2018-2022 term of council. There are no financial implications associated with these appointments. And with respect to the strategic plan, this checks off sustainable municipal operations. So the recommendation is that report CAO 0921 appointments to the Board of Management for the Hanover Downtown Improvement Area be received, and that Hanover Council approve the appointment of Krista Lasavage and Jen Oliveira to the Board of Management for the Hanover Downtown Improvement Area.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is carried. Thank you. Item 5.3 is report DCS 1121. The subject is the 2021 user fees and charges, specifically Schedule G amendment. It's from Chris Walker, Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, and Ron Cooper, our Director of Public Works. Can I get a mover and seconder to put that on the floor? I'll take Councillor Cable and Councillor Fleet. Chris, you can start.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll go through this report, and Ron can chime in at any time if he wants to add additional information. He provided a lot of the background information for this. So council may remember during the 2021 budget meeting in December, council approved increasing the price of garbage bag tags from $2 to $2.50 to be effective July 1st. So we have provided a history of the bag tags that came into effect in January 1st, 2007, when they were $1 each. 6 years later, they were increased 50 cents to $1.50, and then 1 year later, they were increased to $2. I remember back in 2013, they kind of wanted to go to $2, but they wanted to make the increase gradual, so that's why they did it over a 2-year period. And for the last 7.5 years, they've been at $2. Effective July 1st, they should go to $2.50. We've also provided you the cost of the curbside pickup has gone from $61,000 a year to $64,000, and now for the next term it'll be $67,000 starting in 2021, and then 4% increase each year. And the biggest one will be the biweekly recycling costs that have gone from $119,600 in 2013 to $121 in 2016 contract, and now it's up to $201,000 in 2021 with another 4% increase. Council may remember that in order to implement the recommendations of this, we need to update the Schedule G of the user fees and bylaws. So we're proposing the amendment for the new prices to take effective July 1st as per the budget. But in an effort to deter a surge of bag tag sales prior to July 1st, that people come running in to keep the prices down, staff are recommending that a maximum sale of 50 tags per person be implemented during the next 3 weeks. So from today's date to the end of June, you can only buy 50 tags at any one time. Any vendors that are selling them would still be limited to the usual allotment. A lot of times they'll come in sometimes at the beginning of Monday and pick up some, and then if they sell a whole bunch during the week, they'll come in and get the other. What we're trying not to do is say they can't come in and get 5,000 at once. They have to get the allotments like they would normally get, and according to their agreement, they have to sell them at the current approved selling price. So effective July 1st, they have to sell them at $2.50. They can't say, oh, come on in and get them for $2. They have to sell them at $2.50. So you may remember during our discussion that every 50 cents of an increase on bag tags generates approximately $40,000 in revenue, and that's based on 80,000 tags that are usually sold on a yearly basis. So for the 2021 budget, we added 20,000 of additional revenue because it was only for half the year. Future budget years will see 40,000 in revenue increased. So I've given you a summary there of bag tag and other revenue versus the garbage collection and recycling contracts, as well as the landfill expenses. So what you can see is I've given you 2016 to 2020. And with the bag tag revenue and the other revenues, which would be the grants, the recycling grant that we received back, and the difference between the garbage collection expenses and the recycling expenses, we actually have enough with the bag tags that we were selling at that time to cover our expenses, and actually have a little bit between 7,100 up to 34,000 of the bag tag revenue and the recycling revenue to offset the cost to the landfill expenses. However, with the 2020 budget and the huge increase to the recycling, we're actually going to be short 49,100, even if we add it at 250 starting July 1st, which means that extra 49,000 has to come out of the tax base, which is what we're showing you as indicated in this table. so that you have an idea of how it reads pretty quickly. So the link to our strategic plan is that it's sustainable municipal operations. And I think that's all I have, unless Ron would like to add any additional information.
Thanks, Chris. I don't see Ron. He can chime in if he so feels. Council, questions, comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Chris, for your report. I think it does an excellent job of explaining the why around the bag tag price increase. Does a great job of showing that the tag hasn't increased in the last 7 years. My question is, with limiting the vendors on their usual allotment of tags, do we ever run the risk that there would be no location in Hanover with tags, or is that not a possibility? Like, if everybody went in and started buying 50, would we ever end up at a point where there aren't any tags available?
No, they have to, sorry if I can,
Yes,
Mayor Patterson, if I can answer that. Vendors, when they get down to a certain point, they will call us and say, I need more. And then they have to come up with the revenue to pay for those. They also get an incentive to sell the tags. I think it's 10 cents every tag they sell. So to buy them right now, they're $2,000 for 1,000 roll. It would then become $2,500. So they're going to want to buy as many as they need prior to that, but we don't want them to have a huge stock sitting there so that they're not making money on the tags. That's why there's an allotment. So a lot of them come in and usually buy 500 tags at a time, but we have about 3 of them that actually buy the 1,000 rolls. So they will continue to be able to do that. But if that means they sell 1,000, pick up 1,000 on Monday, and they sell them all by Wednesday, they can call us again, but then they have to keep paying as they go forward so that they're not stockpiling. That was the purpose of that.
Thank you.
If that explains it.
Any other comments? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of this report being received? And Councillor Hawking. Councillor Hawking's moving it. Deputy Mayor seconding, or did you have a question?
Sure, I'll second it.
Any further? Oh no, sorry. Geez, I'm getting messed up. We already had a mover and seconder.
I think we did, yeah.
All right, let's start again. All in favor of this report? That is carried. Thank you. That was a lot easier. All right, 5.4. This is you again, Chris. We have report DCS 1221. It's the 2021 final blended tax rates. It's from Chris again, our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, and I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Cable. Okay, Chris, good to go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, remember after we did all the cuts and everything in December, I had to come back and we gave you a rundown of all the different changes that were happening. And so on January 11th, we actually passed a motion to accept the budget levy of $7,358,200, which was an increase of 5.15% over the 2020 levy. So based on that average household assessment, again, remember this was a non-assessment year, so the assessment is the same as it was in 2016. It'll be $219,944 is our average. So with that, there would be about a $52.69 town only increase. However, since that time, Grey County has changed the tax ratios for commercial down from 1.3 to 1.296, and the industrial down from 1.8 down to 1.83, as well as remove the vacancy factors for the commercial and industrial vacant land from the 70-65 to 100%. You may remember I discussed this last time when we were passing our bylaw for the vacant unit rebate. This has nothing to do with the vacant unit rebate. Basically, it says residents pay $1. So for every $1, the county commercial ratio was 1.3. They would pay $1.30. Well, that $1.30 is now dropped down to $1.29. And what they did is what they wanted to do was get rid of that vacancy and excess land to giving that special rate that they had to pay 100%. And in order to do that, they had to do a calculation to show how it would be revenue neutral for both commercial and industrial by changing the tax ratio as well as changing the vacancy factor. I know that's a lot of words together, but it's basically they had to change it so that if the county collected $300 from commercial and industrial, they collected $300 by changing things around in the same way. But however, that just helped the county taxes balance to zero. That didn't help all the municipalities because our ratios and our assessments are totally different than what the county has. So what that did is resulted in a slight increase to our residential tax rate in Hanover by 0.0000313, which really made a difference of about 68 cents to that average household that we were talking about. So when you put that together, the total increase is now actually 2.85% from the 2.82 that we had originally talked about in January. The approved town levy of the 7.358200 that we all agreed on when we did the budget does not change. It's the tax ratios and vacancy factors that affect the residential and tax rates. Council has no control over those rates. So on the next page, I showed you that the taxes in 2020 for an average household was about $1,869.84. That same house would now pay $1,923.21. Again, the $53.37 or 2.85. So for those people who like it more in round figures, for every 100,000, you're increasing the town's tax by about $24.26. So the Ontario regulation for the education was updated in early January. However, we had to wait on the county rates that were finally approved in mid-May. So once those were approved, we were allowed then to calculate our blended tax rates and come back to council with that information. A bylaw will be coming in the end of June when bylaws are being passed for these final tax rates. So our blended tax rate now is 0.01390937. So you take that rate and multiply it by whatever your assessment is on your residential. And I've shown you in a breakdown that for the town, that average household is paying $53.37. For the county, their rate is going to be $16.47 increase, which is a 2.1%. The education rate flatlined. They just went zero across the board because the actual provincial rates made a huge impact to the commercial and industrial because they dropped them down about 30%. So the total tax rate, when you put it all together, you're looking at 2.34% overall increase, or $69.84 for the average household. Again, if we break it down by 100,000, much easier for some people to do multiplication that way, you're looking at $31.75 for every 100,000 of assessment. And I have attached blended tax rate charts and pie graphs so that you can see all the information on how it's calculated out there with the percentages and everything else. Probably don't need me to go through that unless you had any questions on it. So basically, we're requesting that our report for the final blended tax rates be received and that a bylaw confirming these rates be brought forward at the June 21st council meeting for your decision.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments for Chris? Seeing none, all in favor of the report? That is carried. Thanks, Chris. And thanks, council. Item 5.5 is report ED 0721. It is the Saugeen Student Startup Program from April Marshall, our Economic Development Manager. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Fitzsimmons. Welcome, April.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. It's my pleasure to bring this report to you today through our Saugeen Connects partnership, which is a collaborative effort between the Saugeen Economic Development Corporation and our other municipal partners in the Saugeen region. We have our second year for the Student Startup Program, or Saugeen SUP that we like to call it. We took a break last year because of COVID, but we felt this was a really good opportunity to come back at it and see what youth have for business ideas, especially in light of the current circumstances. So I'm really pleased to report that 60 area youth will receive financial support through this grant program to run 50 businesses this summer. 20 of those youth are from Hanover, and they will be operating 14 businesses. 6 of the youth are working with Launchpad, Neptune Scoops, and they are going to be putting their additional grant money towards purchasing a milkshake machine so that they can offer more product at the ice cream truck. Other businesses include dog walking and homemade treats, bracelet, barbecue rub, chocolate truffle and scrunchie makers, so lots of makers. We have some babysitting, lawn maintenance. We have a welder, custom ramps and rails for skateboarding, BMX, and biking and scootering. We have a novelty socks, and we also have some youth that are going to start a resale business of Amazon products. So stay tuned as we roll out more information about how you can get connected with these youth. We'll be updating the website and sharing their social media information. But just additionally to confirm how we support the youth, they will be participating in training sessions. We already had our keynote motivational speech from Daniel Lewis, who started the award-winning tea company, Tea by Daniel. There'll also be other sessions on customer service, media marketing, financial literacy, problem solving and communication, and how to make $1,000 on YouTube. So when they do all of this and they submit their final report, they will earn $450 this summer that they can put back into their business or have some fun with it too. So we have to give a special thank you to our sponsors. This is a community initiative. Our partners get it going, but it is our community businesses and service groups that support it. So I want to include mentioning them: Grey County, Hanover Raceway, Meridian, Hanover's Innovative People Program, or HIP as we're calling it, the Hanover Chamber of Commerce, Hanover Lions Club, and the Hanover Rotary Club. So on August 24th, if it's permitted, we will bring everybody together for a barbecue with our sponsors and the youth, and we'll have a fun event. And if not, we'll do it online. We'll have an online marketplace. So this is for information, and it links to economic development and community in our strategic plan. So I would be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thanks, April. Sounds pretty exciting. The youth are learning at the same time that they're having lots of fun. So, okay, any comments or questions for April? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. No questions, just a comment that this is just fantastic news. Great to see, 41 young people exercising their entrepreneurial spirit is just what we want. I mean, we've been talking about stuff like this for years, and to see it actually happening, and a bunch of them at Launchpad, bravo. And I just think it's a fantastic opportunity for young people to see, businesses, that mentorship that will be happening, people having a chance to, to actually see how a business runs, and looking at that, even if I just look at the Neptune scoops, and to see these young people working together and pooling their resources to make something even bigger happen. I'm just really excited about hearing this news, and this is exactly what the Economic Development Committee, Dave, you will know this, has been talking about for years. We want to see more and more of this entrepreneurial spirit being fostered. So bravo.
Thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I'll call the question. All in favor of receiving this for information? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.6, this is report PB 0721. The subject is backyard chickens. It's from Ken Campbell, our municipal law enforcement officer. I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. And I'll take Councillor Cable and Councillor Hawking. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as you may recall, on the April 6, 2021 meeting, Council heard a delegation from Ben Summer regarding a proposal to permit backyard poultry within Hanover. And at that time, Council asked staff to research the implications of backyard poultry within the town of Hanover and report back at a later date, which would be this evening. So the following information, it provides further background on the issue for Council's consideration. First point being current provisions within the town of Hanover's comprehensive zoning bylaw and the animal control and responsible pet ownership bylaw currently prohibit the keeping of backyard chickens and poultry within residential zones. Second point was comments were solicited from Ontario municipalities that have permitted backyard chickens within residential zones. Comments received summarized as follows: noisy, too many on property, zoning complaints related to the proximity of the chicken coop to neighboring property lines. We also received some unsolicited comments from Town of Hanover residents. Chicken feed will attract rodents, eggs will attract nuisance wildlife, skunks, raccoons, and predators. Additionally, we received a letter regarding the risk of vaccinations and disease, and a letter was also received in support of permitting backyard chickens. Point 4, over the past 3 years, 11 complaints have been received in regards to noise and odor resulting from the keeping of the illegal backyard chickens. Point number 5, on May 17th, the issue was presented to the Planning Advisory Committee. And at that time, PAC recommended that council not amend the Town of Hanover's comprehensive zoning bylaw and animal control bylaw with respect to backyard chickens within residential zones. If council was to consider permitting backyard poultry, new enforcement provisions would be required, as well as registry and a licensing process would also be required. And a considerable public education program would have to be developed and implemented. So it can be argued that certainly there are benefits to allowing backyard poultry within urban areas. However, it can also be argued that the benefits will be localized mostly to the residents hosting the poultry. There are some benefits, provides education for children, provide enjoyment for the owner and lower food costs to the owner. However, it would have to be maintained for long-term to offset the construction, animal feed, and other costs. Some concerns are public health concerns, disease spread to humans or pets from hens, competition with farms and lack of support for local farms, and potential effects on existing commercial poultry operations that we have abutting the town. So if amendments to the municipality's bylaws were approved, enforcement, inspections, processing permits, registry tracking, education, that certainly would increase time and cost significantly. So the link to the strategic plan is direction number 2, community support initiatives to contribute to healthier residents and more active and rewarding lifestyles, increased cultural activity, and a safer community. That concludes my report. And if there's any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ken. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ken, under number 2, you're talking your comments about the solicitations you had with Ontario municipalities for comments. I note that they're all negative and there isn't a single positive comment. Was there no one that had any positive experience that has this bylaw right now?
None that I received, no.
Speaks loud, doesn't it?
Thank you. That's it, Councillor Fitzsimmons? Yes, okay. Councillor Cable and then Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think thanks again to Ben for bringing the topic forward for consideration. I think as you outlined, Ken, the merits of having backyard chickens are definitely there, right? The ability to educate children or to assist in food security, to help reduce carbon footprints, or purposeful pets, as I think it was mentioned in the post, in the letter to the editor. And I think a lot of large urban areas have allowed it or are currently piloting the idea. These communities have permitted urban chickens with many rules and oversight to combat complaints like odor and noise. However, I think with that said, the health concerns surrounding backyard poultry really worries me. Public Health Ontario released a report in 2017 that outlined 2 main findings. One, that owners have limited awareness of the human risk of infectious disease transmission from backyard chickens and the required biosecurity measures that have to be taken. And the second main finding, that illness and outbreaks associated with exposure to backyard chickens has been documented in various studies. So personally, I think that if council were to move forward with this, I think a public meeting to better gauge community support would be appropriate. Or perhaps we kind of watch. A lot of communities are running pilots right now, so perhaps we can learn from lessons learned of those other communities and revisit this at another time.
Thank you, Councillor Cable. Deputy Mayor Hicks, then Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will not be supporting the idea of backyard chickens, and I think I've said that before. But with that said, I do want to acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Sumner. I have to tell you, I think that the evidence is there, that he did his research. He presented his facts very well, and it was persuasive in many instances, some good ideas there. And I think that his intentions were honorable. I mean, when you look at the food issues that we have in our food insecurity, I think is a particularly persuasive issue for me. So I just want to acknowledge that he did a lot of work and that he presented his case very well. I don't support it, but I respect it. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank him for his work. And don't look at my vote against your idea as not, anyways, you get what I'm trying to say. I really want to just acknowledge that this is a person that was passionate about his idea and did do all the things necessary to present it to us as persuasively as possible. I think he did a good job.
Good, thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I'd like to thank Ben too for his report. Like, he did his homework. After reading the report from Lloyd Weaver from the Guelph Poultry Veterinary Service, it outlines the risk of disease related to having backyard poultry, as well as staff report indicating the potential negative effects to the existing poultry operations in our community. I'd hate to see any of our existing barns will ever get diseased, I guess, and that is my biggest concern, is potential for disease.
Thank you. Councillor Dicker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think Council or Deputy Mayor Hicks said it well. It was a very well put together report, but I as well support maintaining our current policy and bylaw and not moving forward with allowing the backyard chickens.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is not to amend our zoning bylaw. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Ken.
Good evening.
Okay, item 5.7 is report PB 0921. This is assumption of block B, C, and D on registered plan 798. It's from Mr. Tedford, our Director of Development and CBO. I need a mover and seconder. So Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Fleet. Don.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, report PB 0921. Excuse me, speaks to blocks B, C, and D. If you look at the last page on the report, you can actually look at the sketch of the subdivision, the actual reference plan that was registered back in the 70s. And you'll see where we've highlighted block C, B, and D. And if you look beside lot 5, you'll see block A. And it looks like block A was probably left as a land of common use or land for something else. Without pulling out the subdivision agreement, I do not know what block A was left for. But we definitely know that block B, C, and D are 1 foot reserves. So on October the 23rd, 1963, a plan of subdivision 798 was registered in the land registry. It included 19 lots, blocks A, blocks B, C, and D, 1 foot reserves, and the street, namely 6th Street, 12th Avenue, and 13th Avenue, and 13th Avenue A. On May 13, 2021, correspondence was received from Carmen, Stafford, Grove, McClellan, and Fisher barristers and solicitors representing Joel and Heather Van Stratton, who are selling the property known as 228 13th Ave. They became aware of the title issue regarding access to their property, being the solicitor indicated is requesting that Block C is opened by way of a bylaw dedicating it as a public highway and registered the same on title. Subsequent to reviewing the Plan 798, it was also shown that there are other 1-foot reserves known as Blocks B, C, or B and D, Plan 798, and shown on the attached plan. There is no financial obligations to this other than passing the bylaw and moving forward on these 1-foot reserves becoming part of the road allowance. The Planning Act and the Municipal Act is fairly straightforward on these 1-foot reserves. And the way they sit today, we could go and put posts in that 1-foot reserve and block traffic for whatever reason. But this will stop that from happening, and the lawyers wish for that to be. So houses have been selling on these streets for many, many years, but all of a sudden we're going to be cleaning this up because they've asked us to do it. So the only effect that really has, that's why Mr. Cooper's on here too, is that sustainable municipal operations, it affects the roads. And the recommendation, Your Worship, is that report PB 0921, assumption of Block B, C, and D in Plan 798 be received, and that a bylaw be presented at the June 21st, 2021 council meeting, assuming Blocks B, C, and D as part of the road system. If there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thanks, Don. So this is like housekeeping, right?
Yes, it is. Very much. It's like housekeeping.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Okay. Oh, Deputy Mayor Hicks. I knew that.
Sorry, I can't help but actually compliment this Stafford. I think it's probably been there for forever, and nobody's ever really paid attention to it. This is a good lawyer pointing out something that should be cleaned up. So I would just give her some kudos.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because I do know one of the houses has sold, and this didn't come before us, like sold 10 years ago. So this is good. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, 5.8. This is report PB 1021. It's the official plan amendment, LOPA, which is local official plan amendment number 3. It's an update, and it's from Mr. Tedford, our Director of Development and CBO. So I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Deputy Mayor Hicks and Councillor Dickert. Don?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, planning report PB 1021 is a very, it's a thick document, but I don't think we need to go through all of it. We've had our public meetings. We have seen the reports from Palmer on the environmental and from GM on the blue plan on the servicing. So what we're going to be basically looking at is the official plan itself. Now, if council so wishes, I'll stick to just my report, or would you like me to go through the actual official plan amendment itself? Or I can go over Schedule A, which will show you the lands that are being changed. I think that's where we deferred the recommendation back then to address 4 areas of the official plan. After a lot of back and forth, working with the county on Friday, we do have a map now that addresses those changes within our official plan amendment number 3. So it's however council wishes for me to move forward.
Dawn, let's start with your report.
Okay. Thank you. On March 9th, 2021, Nick McDonald, planning consultant with Meridian Planning Consulting, attended the Planning Advisory Committee meeting and presented his planning justification report
to the committee with his recommendation for the 4 special policy areas. Subsequently, Planning Advisory Committee deferred their decision until after the required public meeting and any comments received from the affected property owners. The public meeting for the official plan, OPA 3, was held on March the 15th, 2021. Council heard and considered staff report PB 0421, and the planning justification report was prepared by Nick McDonald. Comments at the public meeting were received from Brian Whaling, Henry Lansing, Maple Leaf Foods, Hydro One, Chris Cantors, Brian Hawk, and Grey County Planning and Development, and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. Subsequent to the public meeting and the removal of the 3 residential areas, plus the amended SPAs for Hydro One, Maple Leaf Foods, Henry Lansing, and the revised hazard boundary for the SPA 2 and 3, as requested by the Conservation Authority, Council deferred a decision pending the above noted revisions being presented at a further council meeting. It was agreed with the owners that the 3 residential areas, which was Hawk, Kramer, Barfoot, and I'll mention it at this time, Your Worship, that the lands that Kramer had have now been purchased by Hawk. So there's actually 2 owners that are affected now. It would be Hawk and Barfoot. So that's all it would be looked at in the housekeeping. Would have to be, would have the commercial designation amended to residential with a future official plan update. Staff met with all affected property owners, and further presentation was made to the PAC on May 11th, 2021. At that meeting, Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council adopt the official plan amendment, the attached official plan amendment number 3. The financial implications is that all of official plan amendment number 3 costs, which are associated with the Hanover Local Growth Management Strategy. It was a condition that we complete our OPA 3 as part of our growth management strategy. The scoped comprehensive review and phase 2 have been approved in this 2021 budget. So it's part of that budget. The link to the official plan is its economic development. It's community-based, and it's also on the environment, and it sustains municipal operation. It checks all of those strategic plans with this new official plan. So the recommendation, Your Worship, is that staff report PB 1021, official plan amendment number 3, update be received, that a bylaw be passed at the next regular council meeting to adopt official plan amendment number 3, and further that the amendment be forwarded to the County of Grey for final approval. It was downloaded from the province to the county 10 years ago or whatever, but they are now the approval authority. If there's any question, I'd be pleased to answer them. If you wish to go more into the OPA, we can do that.
Thanks, Don. So, Council, do you want further details of the actual changes in the OPA? Or will your questions cover it? Somebody, Deputy Mayor Hicks.
I don't feel that I need it, but it may not hurt to have a brief overview of the actual changes.
Okay, Dawn.
The official plan amendment has actually got different parts to it, the preamble, and then the amendment itself, and then the appendices. There's quite a few appendices attached to the actual amendment. So the statement is on the amendment consisting of the following texts and schedules, and they're in A1. So if we look at A1, which is the next one, we actually, the first basis is where we look at the special policy areas. So the maps will show you a special policy area. The northern part is special policy area 1 and 4. That was 4 was all of the lands owned by the Hydro One, and area 1 was the lands owned by Brian Hawk. Then when we look at the bottom map of the town, which shows area 1 or area 3 as being the lands, area 2, pardon me, is the lands owned by Henry Lansing. And then beside that, south of the Whaling subdivision is area 3. So those, if you remember, those were the 3 areas that were designated in our official plan back in 2001. And that was the lands that were annexed into the town of Hanover. No, I use the word annex there, but it was through amalgamation that we were annexed those lands. So to provide the basis of the, I'm on the next page now, second paragraph down, is that to provide the basis of this amendment, the study team by Watson and Associates was retained by the town, along with Meridian Planning, to undertake a scoped comprehensive review. And it's with this review that the term urban and residential and non-residential, the lands need to be determined if there were going to be shortages in the amount of lands available for the development area within the SPA 1 to 4. So it goes on to talk about a report done by Malone Given Parsons. That's the third period up from the bottom. And that report was a commercial review that indicated there was a land shortage. At the very last sentence is a deficit of approximately 20 hectares. The next paragraph down is IBI Group and Malone Given Parsons did another comprehensive review with regards to commercial. And the supply analysis reviewed, updated, and mapping of Watson's was part of the scoped review. So this land shortage was shown at that time. Then it says the last paragraph, in light of the significant evidence of land shortage within the corporate boundaries of Hanover, the purpose of the scope comprehensive review was to address the town's long-term urban residential, non-residential land needs within the context of anticipated townwide population and employment growth. A further purpose was to develop a articulated strategies that would with respect to the implementation of and approach to the addressing local growth management issues and the town's long-term urban needs. So they did a phase 1, which showed a shortfall of 40 hectares. If you look on the 4th line down, of designated urban lands exist within the 20-year planning horizon. And 85 gross hectares existed within the 25-year horizon. The reason we changed to the 25 years in the middle of our report is that the province changed the horizon from 20 to 25 years. Given that these findings were developed on the basis of lands within SPA 1, 2, and 3, they ignored 4 again because it was primarily electrical utilities were available for development. One of the key recommendations made in December 2019 report was that the town should review its SPAs in more detail to have a clear idea of how much of this land is actually available for development. Of the basis of above, the consulting team led by Meridian was retained and the following. They carried out the review of the SPAs, prepared the official plan, which we're looking at, revised recommended urban land needs based on the potential refinements of the SPA areas, carry out an assessment of hard servicing, identify new strategic growth areas, lands to accommodate land need beyond the 25-year horizon, recommend location options for future urban expansion, for future within the 20 to 25-year long term, make recommendations regarding the reference location upon the future urban expansion based on the review of selected criteria, including but not limiting to planning considerations, real estate market trends, local site characteristics, agricultural impacts, environmental constraints, and broad servicing requirements. The servicing requirements did show to be a bit of an issue for us in the area 2 and 3. Review of specific infrastructure needs associated with the referred location. So this amendment to the SPA has been prepared in accordance with the above given and known environmental constraints. Palmer was responsible for completing the assessment of the heritage features. This involved visiting each site and completing their environmental, looking at the significant woodlands that are currently shown in the town's official plan. A copy of the report is attached, as it says there. The recommendation made by Palmer report provided that on the basis proposed changes to the limit of the significant woodlands in adjacent to areas 1, 2, and 3, Schedule B to the Hanover official plan. Changes to the hazard designation are also proposed on the basis of comments submitted by the Conservation Authority. In addition, the GM Blue Plan, they looked at the availability of providing services into these 3 areas. And they looked at the capacity of the water, the available storage of the water, elevated tanks, the capacity of the existing planned water distribution, the availability of the town's wastewater treatment, requirements for new wastewater pumping facilities, available capacity of existing sanitary collection systems, the relation and requirements, local collector roads, and potential expansions to existing arterial roads. A copy of their report is also attached. In the term of future land use in the 4 policy areas proposed in this amendment, that they talk about lands fronting. Well, we know where SPA and 3 or SPA 1 is, and it talks about Great Crown Road being designated residential. That's the northeast corner. The remainder of the land is to be developed along County Road 28 to the west of the Havermill Creek would become industrial, and that was proposed even in our official plan prior. Lands in the SPA 2 that are site of an agricultural related employment use of Horizon Poultry on 10 be designated future development to recognize the use and not permit expansions without future applications or official plan or zoning. To recognize, and the discussions with Maple Leaf Foods was that they're prepared. And it was interesting to note in discussions with them that I thought they would want the residential designation similar to what Henry Lansing negotiated with the town, but they actually talked about being very busy. They are actually looking at, if anything, expanding and looking at mitigation of odor and other issues. They have a fairly large site there now, but that was their whole issue, was that they didn't want to do anything different right now because they have a huge expansion in the London area in Kitchener that will affect hopefully a little bit of the Hanover thing. So just to let you know, that was the discussions that come out of the end of that one. Lands in the area 2 south of the future development area, the west side of 10th Avenue, will be designated residential. These are the Henry Lansing lands. Since this use would be compatible with existing residential uses to the east, because of the lands are not suitable for employment areas and employment uses. Lands in the SPA 3 on the east side of 10th Avenue will be designated industrial, permit industrial uses along with recreational uses as well, to recognize that the lands may be used as a recreational use until such time as industrial. Those recreational uses, I think, would be in our official plan when we create the OP. And they would be restricted to soccer pitches and ball diamonds, and maybe even a dog park, because it's on the main highway coming through town, that it might get used quite a bit by the traveling public. But those are the type of uses you're looking at, not physical buildings. The SPA 4 be designated electrical utilities, which we all agree with. With the above changes, the special policy area designation will no longer exist in our official plan. So special policy area jargon or wording will disappear out of our official plan. So the next is the text of the changes. And the mapping on the back, which is Schedule A to the proposed amendment, will show you in the top right-hand corner now, the residential has been extended down now to meet the boundary of the electrical authority's boundary, which they have asked and requested. Also to the west, on the west side of the second environmental lands you see there, there is 2 triangular shaped industrial. Those are currently in our OP, but in order to accommodate the third hydro corridor that went through the town of Hanover, 7, 8 years ago, I guess now, some of the landowners were dealt with them in such a way that they had to buy the whole land to get the piece they wanted. And that's what happened with that particular parcel. And also with the lands to the east, south of the Hawkland, they ended up buying all of that. So they ended up, we had a lot of blue in our proposed plan that was out to the public at the public meeting. Those areas Hydro requested, they go back because they resold everything back that were, they did not want to hang on to those parcels. Then down in the area 2, you'll see where the residential goes down and butts onto the hazard. The hazard boundary across the bottom of the map, it now coincides with the mapping as provided by the Conservation Authority. And then the lands to the south of the Whaling subdivision is now designated industrial for those reasons. So those were the 4 areas that it went back to planning advisory. And the report concludes that there's still, these lands do not satisfy the requirements of lands needed with the comprehensive review. So I'd have to, but anyways, it's part of the report that was back. I think we still have a short in the growth management strategy thing. We still have a shortage of, and that includes any lands that were available in the SPA 3s. We still have a shortage of 60 hectares that the town is requiring for future development to the year for 25-year horizon. So that's the gist of the OPA 3, which is the SPAs are now gone and we're back to other designations.
That's good. Thank you, Don, for all that. Any comments or questions with all those details? Councillor Cable. Councillor Cable, we can't hear you. Councillor Cable, we can't hear you.
In distant future item.
Okay, so Councillor Cable, we couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
When you show mute, we can hear you.
No, try now.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Don, the Hawk and Barfoot lands that are zoned commercial, you said that it's not going to be included in this official plan amendment. Is that a near future item to have those reconsidered, or is that a far future item?
We come up with requiring some other official plan amendments with regards to even our growth management strategies. So I see probably fairly quickly before the end of the year anyways, that we'll do an official plan update. And in that update, we can include the 2 areas in effect, if you remember, is the lands that are where the old concrete, concrete cement plant was up on County Road 28, across from the new subdivision. So that's one of the areas. And the other one, of course, is on the corner of 14th Street and 24th Avenue. So there are 2 very close ones together. One is fairly straightforward. The Barfoot one will not all go to commercial. So there's been discussions with the county after they applied for an official plan amendment to go all residential, which did not survive the process. So they have since come back saying, can they do a mixed use and rezone a portion of the land or redesignate a portion of the land residential and leave a portion as commercial? That is now in the process and going to be decided on. The other one will probably depend on the style and the look of the plan of subdivision, and to be able to align an intersection up so that a future set of lights would happen at the top of the hill for the subdivisions on the east and the west side. The new Cedar West, they'd end up trying to line those two intersections, those two streets up. And so I think that official plan amendment will recognize that new subdivision at the time. So, and I do see them wanting to go ahead fairly quickly with the OP.
Thank you.
Official plan amendment.
Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you. You know, it is, you know, there's a lot here, and every time I see it, I discover some new little nugget, and just the public watching maybe looking at this, you know, it seems like Swahili almost, you know, like you're speaking a different language, and it can be a tough piece to get your head around. But I look back and I think, geez, two things. One, interesting thing, if you look at a 20-year horizon in the one study, if you look at a 20-year horizon, we had a shortfall of 40 gross hectares. Now, if you expand that 20-year horizon just 5 years, you jump from 40 gross hectare shortfall to 85. So it doubles by just moving that needle 5 years. I frankly think, you know, it's a good move that they've moved to 25, but frankly, we should be looking at 40. And imagine what the numbers would then be showing if we were looking at, in my respectful view, a more reasonable number is to be looking at 40 years. And imagine what that number would be if we just moved the needle 5 years, it more than doubles. But the other thing that I picked up just from listening to you again here, Don, is, you know, we've got comprehensive review after comprehensive review and scoped comprehensive reviews. And, you know, our land situation has been studied to death. And, you know, the numbers don't lie. So for anybody thinking that we're just, you know, picking this up now or in this term, you know, you can see the history shows we have been at this a very, very, very long time. And so I want the public to see and to take note that we have spent a lot of resource, including financial resource, by the way, because whether it's a scope comprehensive review or a comprehensive review, they don't come cheap, and they're laborious and they're expensive. And we can keep studying all we want. We're going to come up with the same results, which is that there is a shortfall and we need to get on with it so that Hanover can play its proper role in Grey County's official plan, which is direct your primary settlement activities to your primary settlement areas, of which Hanover is one of 2 of such special primary settlement areas in the County of Grey. I'm firmly wearing my Town of Hanover hat as I speak here today, as I'm required to do. But, you know, look, I know I'm singing from, you know, the same songbook as everyone else around this council. I'm glad, Don, that you took the time to go through all of this again, because I want people to see that it has been historical, that it has been, you know, painfully meticulous and expensive. And we need to get on with it in order to do what we legitimately should be doing in playing our role within the County of Grey.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Deputy Mayor Hicks, but the key fact now is that once OPA 3 gets approved by the county, we now don't have special policy areas anymore. We now have lands that are designated for uses. And I think it puts us in a position, a very good position for the town, to look at funding from the province or the feds with regards to extending services into these new areas once we get our new official plan in place. Our new official plan will look like you see Schedule A to bylaw number 03. It was a good decision by the county to say they wanted to see a whole new map. So that's what we're looking at. That map will end up going on the wall in the office. And it, let me tell you, it took some a lot of talk to get it to look like it looks now. Hopefully it passes the county. You may see some minor changes with the environment stuff at the bottom. But it'll be very, very minor if there is. But other than that, we put in front of you today or tonight for council to adopt an official plan that covers a lot of stuff like you're saying. And that's the only way what you see here now, that full report goes to the county, and all of those items are required. All the reports, all the comments, all the letters of objections, all the letters for it in favor of it, they all have to be submitted as part of the application.
Okay, thanks, Don. Any further comments or questions? All right, so we're receiving this amendment update, and a bylaw will be passed at the next regular council meeting. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 6 is reports and correspondence for information. And the first one, 6.1, is report FI 0821. It's the monthly activity report for May, and it's from our fire chief, Chief Deniger. It's all yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as you can see from the report, this is for May 2021. We can see that during May, we had a very busy month with 22 calls. The first being false fire calls with 7, and second being fires with 5, and medical a third with 4. The annual fire calls to the end of May, the first was medical, second was false fire calls, and third was rescues. We completed 3 inspections and issued 3 reports. Alarm for life visits were 0, and public education was 0 as well due to COVID. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions? All right, moving on. 6.2 is the downtown improvement area. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is going back to February 18th. It was minus 10 degrees, not plus 30. We welcome JD Lyons to our meeting. He gave the 2020 year-end financials. We discussed the facade program and the community improvement plan 2021. Also, we talked about the downtown promotions and the Groundhog Day promotion with $50 DIA dollars. Also at this time, I'd like to welcome Chris LeSavage and Jen Olvera to the Board of Management of the downtown improvement area. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any, so we'll move on. Item 6.3 is the Hanover Police Services Board meeting minutes from May the 17th, and I will highlight those. Board Chair Don Smith, he informed the board that the Emergency Services Facilities Report was completed and presented to this council. And now the town will, as in town and council, will make determine what the next steps are moving forward for renovations to the police station and for the new fire hall. Upgrades have been made to the firewall and the server to ensure appropriate security measures are in place, because there have been cyber attacks at least one for sure, police station. So we're just keeping everything up to date for security and safety. The 2020 annual report has been completed and approved, and it will eventually be uploaded to the Hanover Police Services website. And the chief has been reappointed to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And the police service also participated in the sign wars. I think you'll remember those. Different businesses throughout the town were having sign wars. And although the police station does not have a sign, they participated online, and it was very well received. In fact, all the signs were great. And the chief acknowledges that Sherry Hagan at Norm's Restaurant has everyone beat. She is the best for sign wars, and she did have some really good some words on her signs. So that was pretty good. I enjoyed following those on social media. And any questions if you have any? Okay, thank you. Item 6.4, this is a letter from the town of Blue Mountains thanking and supporting Dr. Era and the Grey Bruce Public Health Unit for their efforts during the pandemic. This is just for information. And 6.5 is comments and concerns from the neighborhood about the proposed sidewalk along the west side of 14th Avenue and 2nd Street A. So we've read all those. 6.6 is a memorandum from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding extension orders under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. So the stay-at-home order expired on June 2nd, and the government expects to enter step 1 with a 3-step plan to safety. And it was going to reopen on the 14th, and now it's going to open on Friday. Yay. So that's it for correspondence, for information. So moving on, item 7 is planning and other meetings. So I'll read this evening. We have Age Friendly, which is Tuesday, June 15th at 2 p.m. Planning Advisory Committee meeting is Tuesday, June 15th at 5 p.m. Did I say 2 p.m. on Age Friendly, 5 p.m. on Planning Advisory? Economic Development is at 9 a.m. on June 16th. Dates to remember and announcement. Our next regular council meeting is June 21st at 7 p.m. And I'll ask at this time if there's any notices of motion. Seeing none, we do not have a closed meeting, so we have one final motion to adjourn at 8:32. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Hawking, all in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much, Council. Good meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.